welcome back. I'm still with Zackie Achmat, who's talking to us from our Cape Town studios. He's the convener of hashtag Unite Behind. And here in Johannesburg, I'm joined by Mr. Tebogo Khaas, who's the president of the SMME Forum, and he will be joining our conversation talking about the state of the state-owned enterprises, because they are in trouble and they are always appealing for bailouts, and that in itself is taking out a good chunk of money out of the budget. But then let me coming back to you, Zackie. You mentioned something towards the end of the earlier part of my interview with you. I want to find out from you, what do you think needs to happen to PRASA and commuter rail generally to make it work for the ordinary folk, especially in the Western Cape?
I think, Tim, what we must understand is that the ANC's policy since 1996, government policy 2, has been that where metros have the capacity, they should take over commuter rail. That is also the position in the Constitution that requires metros to run municipal public transport. Similarly, the National Land Transportation Act says the same. Every white paper and strategic document adopted by Parliament since has made the same point, that metros with capacity should run their own rail. Now, what has happened recently is Premier David Makura correctly has said that in Gauteng, the provincial government should run the commuter rail service, and that's for a very clear reason. You have 3 metros crossing each other's borders, and it would be wasteful expenditure, duplication, and all manner of problems if you set up 3 separate commuter rail entities. So what Premier Makura has asked is for the reassignment of PRASA to Gauteng provincial government, and I would support that. Personally, this is a critical question for me. In addition, the City of Cape Town has asked for the reassignment of PRASA to the City of Cape Town. Now, what we have to do is move out of the who controls the city or who controls the province, the political party sphere. Everywhere across the world, commuter rail is controlled by local government where it has the capacity. And in the City of Cape Town, the city is so wide that the municipality here can run it. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of people say, but does the City of Cape Town have the capacity? And our answer to that is very simple. The City of Cape Town runs a very complex institution, and largely all its roads are functional. It delivers water mostly to most places. Informal settlements suffer getting not enough water, but that's a problem across the country. So it has a significant budget, much more than the PRASA budget, which it accounts for. And
I want to go back to the earlier parts and what you said about the amount of money that was lost by PRASA in the process, and ask the bigger question to you, Tebogo Khaas. You had a get-together, a summit, a discussion with SARS as well as Deloitte recently, where you were discussing the budget. Right now, there's a 63 billion rand shortfall of the money collected by SARS, but yet there's so much money that's been allocated to SOEs. But then we hear about these big losses that are being suffered at PRASA, at Eskom, and so on. What is your understanding? How much do you think is being lost through the SOEs, and should they continue receiving these bailouts?
I think from our perspective, a lot has been pilfered or still been pilfered, and it's just that PRASA and Eskom are the ones within the radar in terms of the focus. But there's a lot of money that has already been siphoned out of the system itself and continues to be. And I think SARS has got a tall order. I mean, its work is cut out in terms of it being able to plug the gap that you mentioned, that's the 63 billion revenue shortfall that you mentioned, but we are hopeful that SARS will be on top of the game. I mean, to use an example of some of the projects that have been outside of public scrutiny, for example, if you look at the Masbambisani agricultural project that was chaired by the former president Jacob Zuma, and the CEO thereof was his nephew. Billions were channeled through that, and the sad thing is these are billions that were aimed at improving the lot of small-scale farmers or emerging farmers to try and help them with implements, equipment, and all that. But none of that has been accounted for, and very little noise has been made about it, because now we're focused a lot more on Eskom plus up, with good reason. But all we're saying is that there's a lot more that needs to be done, and the question is, do we have, or do the authorities, here I'm talking about the NPA and so forth, do they have the wherewithal, the courage, or the gumption to actually go out and make sure that we recover or reclaim all the money that has been lost through the fiscus, which makes even the likes of COSATU even much more emboldened, and justifiably so, to say, look, you don't talk about reducing or cutting down the wage bill or freezing wage increases whilst we see all this malfeasance taking place. Yeah, because until such time that government can show that it can walk the talk and it can go after those people, including those that are outside, or programs that are outside the normal public scrutiny, to recover, many people will feel justified not to give unto Caesar what belongs to him.
Zackie, I see you're nodding there in Cape Town. Yeah, what is your comment?
The critical thing for us to remember here is that our country is so unequal, and inequality drives a lot of the corruption. But we have to say this, that as far as SOEs are concerned, they are critical for development. Everything, not only SOEs, but ordinary things like schools that procure from the private sector, things like textbooks and so on. So the state's role in the economy is a critical one. And I believe that what Tebogo is saying, that a lot more is happening. PRASA wasn't on the public radar until we put it on the public radar. But you have things like the national lotteries. You have a much smaller range of municipalities. At every level, there is money being lost. And what you're absolutely right about, Tebogo, is where is the National Prosecuting Authority in this, in helping to seize assets, or freeze them at least? That is the minimum that has to happen. Prosecutions have to follow, but helping to freeze assets, especially in situations like Eskom and PRASA, where the corruption has, Estina and so on, where the corruption has been exposed. So from where I sit, Tim, we are doing a disservice to the nearly 10 million unemployed people in the country by letting our SOEs fail and letting bailouts happen for things like SOE, which personally my socialist comrades will be cross with me for saying this, but I believe Eskom's SOE should be sold off.
Thank you very much, Zackie Achmat, for having been my guest on the show. I appreciate and wish you good luck, as well as the people of the Western Cape, good luck. And let's get those trains running again. Thanks for the work that you do. I'll be continuing with Tebogo Khaas in a moment, looking at the state of our economy.